So we watched some things.
We did.
We watched 2 films, and I'm also going to talk about a book slightly because it is relevant and it's time travel. Yeah. When we go into this, I originally had, like, when I started writing the script, like, last week, it was kind of, like, witty or, like, kind of, like, passive-aggressive angry. And then as I started to write it and explore the media and really think about the implications, it did get pretty emotional. So just, you know.
I guess trigger warning.
Yeah, trigger warning, definitely. It's going to get pretty emotional. I definitely, like, can't guarantee that I won't tear up because I definitely was when I was writing this.
Yeah.
So, because, it gets real. And I think people are like, oh, like, time travel films, Back to the Future or Time Traveler's Wife or, and totally, but we're going to get into some real things too, because I think there's like an entire point of view that is often overlooked when it comes to time travel.
Yeah.
And, like, science fiction altogether, right? So the first film, I'm going to have Kat introduce it.
Sure. We watched About Time. It's from 2013, directed by Richard Curtis. Same as Coherence. Was also 2013? Or
it's just that they were both in 2013.
Oh, not same director.
Cool.
Same time.
Sorry.
So at the age of 21, Tim discovers he can travel in time and change what happens and has happened in his own life. His decisions to make his world a better place by getting a girlfriend turns out not to be as easy as you might think.
Yeah.
It's just happy-go-lucky.
Happy fun time.
Fun time.
It totally is. It is a fun film. It's cute. It's a little weird. When I watched this, I was like, someone please write a time travel movie with a female protagonist and let it be Rachel McAdams.
Because she's always the wife.
She's literally time travel's wife. And then we watched the trailer because we were, like, figuring out which one we wanted to watch. And we watched the trailer for About Time, and they have the scene where, like, he proposes to her and she's laying in bed.
You marry me?
I think I'll go for yes.
And then we watched Time Traveler's Wife. Same thing happened.
Marry me?
No. I didn't mean that.
And I was like, literally, like, who wrote this?
Our Lady Loves Sleep.
Yeah.
Same.
And Rachel McAdams also is in Midnight in Paris, where, when Wilson travels back in time to see all the writers and artists.
Yeah.
Because he, like, fantasizes about that time. So
she's always a bride, always a wife, never a time traveler.
Yeah. Yes. That's what she gets for being a mean girl. But I would love to see her, actually be the protagonist. Something about that I think is so About Time, it is pretty cute. We have this British man who travels in time, really, like, through his own time, and the whole intent is that he wants to be in love, and he gets that, and so, but he does these weird things when it comes to it. Like, he'll time travel back in time so he can say the perfect thing, and he'll say these really weird, specific things that that Rachel McAdams' character had mentioned. Like, she loves Kate Moss, and so he has this very intricate, like, literally the words out of her mouth, which is, like, who remembers those things, but the words out of her mouth, and just, like, says it to her the first time he meets her, like, the 5th time or whatever.
Yeah, there were a ton of red flags. It was real cringe. And she, like, seemed a little...
She was like, that's weird, but she was also like, oh my god, I love Kate Moss, I can't believe you said that. And, like, he kept doing these things that they were super weird, and for me, I was like, you're going back, and you're kind of erasing all those things that are fun about a relationship when it first starts, like, all those stories that you tell, like, your kids, right? Like, the first time they met, the real first time, was such a cute story.
Yeah.
And he did it for a good reason, like, going back, but, like, what he ended up with was super weird. He just, like, shows up and he's like, let's leave this party now. And, like, it's super weird. And I thought that was funny because there's a film on Netflix that I'm blanking on the name right now, but it has a guy from Workaholics. When We First Met. It is a comedy film on Netflix that does time travel, and it actually was really cute. It was unexpectedly cute. I wasn't expecting it to be that way. And what he does is, like, when he goes back in time and does those very specific phrases and stuff, she calls him out on it. She's like, you're scary. Like, this is weird. I don't appreciate it.
Yeah, I was like, what, did you, like, read
She's like, why do you know
stuff?
that?
Like,
That's
it's
like,
weird.
you're a stalker. And so I was like, that's so honest for how someone would react to the first, like, because you have to think of it, like, this is the first time she ever met you and you said this weird out-of-pocket stuff. Or, like, he redoes it to, like, have sex better. And it's like, but those are the fun parts when you're, like, figuring each other out. Like, I would be kind of creeped out if someone's just, like, perfect the first time. Like, now it's, like, all the time has to be perfect. Like, what do you, like, you can't mess up now. Anyway, so those are the fun parts about time. That's about as much time as I'm going to spend on About Time,
That's
really.
fair.
Because I wanted to...
That's fair.
What I want to do is I want to jump into this big, glaring comparison between the two films that we're going to talk about. So, when you have something like About Time or Time Traveler's Wife, we have white male protagonists who are born with this gift, this insane gift to travel through time, and they use it for these mediocre white male things, like going back in time to say the right thing to the girl that they love, or I don't know, going back in time to groom a young child to love you when they're older. Blink twice if you need help. Rachel McAdams as a child in Time Traveler's Wife.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I guess it was like one of those things that's like, oh, this didn't age well.
And the book is like hard. The cool things about Time Traveler's Wife is, spoilers for that film that's old and no one really cares about, is that when she's pregnant, her kids are also time travelers, so they would time travel out of the womb.
It's not limited to gender in this family.
Yeah, yes. In About Time, it is limited to gender, which is like, don't even get me started. But it time travels out of the womb, which could, like, if it was told from the point of view of Rachel McAdams, from the wife, really, like, if we really had her full story and it wasn't about him at all, then we could actually have a narrative about, like, losing children and you know, about miscarriages, but we don't really have that fully. The book does have a little more of that, but yeah. So that's the only thing I would say I would take from Time Traveler's Wife. But, like, we generally do have, like, I mean, like, even Marty McFly, right? Like, he just goes back, it's fun, it's wacky.
Yeah.
Like, his mom has a crush on him. Like, that's silly, you know? So, I don't want to generalize because time travel films span across a multitude of genres, right? Like, we have romantic comedies, like we just mentioned, just comedies, like Hot Tub Time Machine, you know? There's, like, I think 3 of them now. Thrillers, like Butterfly Effect, which we'll talk about. Horror, like Dark, which we'll also talk about in a mini-series. And then social drama, like See You Yesterday.
Yeah.
Or social sci-fi, I would say. So I don't want to generalize, but what I found when we ended up using See You Yesterday as, like, one of our films is a similar feeling to when we watched Bedeviled and we found out that the teens' fears were very much influenced by their lives and also their privilege, right? Like, we found that, like, their fears just happened to, like, coincide with who had, you know, luxuries and who didn't. And I think a film like See You Yesterday really expounds upon this like, inequity, right? Between a white protagonist who can go back in time or go into their time and do whatever. It's so carefree. Of course we can be fun and have, like, silly dreams, right? Versus something like See You Yesterday. And, like, you know, I love this. I did enjoy this film. I've watched it a few times, actually, because I love those really sappy, silly films that, like, nothing really goes wrong and it's just kind of cute and simple because sometimes you need an escape. And it's totally good for that. And so I'm not, like, dogging this film at all. And I also, you know, I enjoyed Time Traveler's Wife. I've read it and watched it. I love time travel stuff. But Tim, that's his name, right? Tim.
I want to say, yeah.
He wants for nothing. Like, he has this privilege and to use this phenomenal gift to go back in his own life and make minute changes that make his life slightly better. And to the point where, like, eventually he comes to this term, which I think is what you kind of reach with most time travel films, and, like, what you were saying is that we don't really win. Like, we hope that we can go back to win. But what you should learn from time travel films is to live in the moment. And that's what, like, you know, you kind of learn with, like, the parallel universes, is that, like, every choice is the perfect choice because you made it, right? And so he eventually decides, like, he doesn't want to do time travel anymore. He's going to live every day as if he had traveled back in time to enjoy that day. And so, like, that changes his whole life, and it's beautiful for it.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's as sentimental as you can get, right? But there's, you know, there's just so much more to be said when it comes to time travel, specifically when it comes to social injustices. So this is where, you know, spoilers for the rest of this episode, it's going to get a little sad. So I'm going to say a little bit about what See You Yesterday is about. It is from 2019. It's very recent, by director Stefan Bristol. Not Spike Lee. Spike Lee helped produce it, but it is Stefan's film, and it very much is his film. He put his blood, sweat, tears, and his mom's blood, sweat, tears in it too, right? So it is about two Brooklyn teenage prodigies, C.J. Walker and Sebastian Thomas, build makeshift time machines to save C.J.'s brother Calvin from being wrongfully killed by a police officer. So let's get into it. So there's something that really stuck out to me in the beginning of See You Yesterday, and it's when Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly himself, is a teacher, and he is talking to these kids about time travel, and he asks these protagonists, this protagonist who's this young, intelligent, like, phenomenal black girl from New York, right, who's like, you know, he knows that she can change the world, and he believes in her. And he looks at her, and he's like, if you could have this, like, it's impossible with time travel. If you could have this, what would you use it for? Like, what would you do? And I was just like, that is the question that, like, other people should be asking when they make time travel movies, right?
Yeah.
And it, you know, encompassed, like, my emotions of it, because, like, I understand not traveling out of your lifetime because, like, butterfly effect is, like, even more so. Like, if you're traveling outside. So, like, you don't go and kill baby Hitler or, like, I don't know, better yet, get him into art school. Like, you don't do that, right? Because you can't. And because it would change so much of the world, it's too much. So you go back and change, like, little bits of yourself. But I think, like, the biggest thing between these two films and these two, like, kind of takes on it is what they choose to do with the power. Right? The other thing that I really loved about this scene with Marty McFly is that he is holding Octavia E. Butler's Kindred, which I have with me. I'm going to grab it. Should have had it next to me. Actually, I have 2 copies.
You want me to get the other one?
No, those are other books.
Gotcha.
I have a few. I brought a bunch of my Octavia Butler books with me. I actually have 2 copies of this because I got one for Christmas this year because someone knows I love it. So Octavia Butler is, if you're unfamiliar with her, she is the, like, you know, a pioneer of the black sci-fi and Afrofuturist genre. She was, like, the first black science fiction writer, right, that made this. Like, she made Kindred, and that was, like, what spawned all of these books that we know and love now, and films, too. Like, we would not have See You Yesterday without Octavia Butler, and we will definitely talk about her later, because, like, at some point, she deserves a whole episode on herself. But I actually read Kindred when I first got to Philadelphia. I was in school, in college, and it totally rocked my world. It, like, changed, and it was, you know, there was a lot of other things that were happening during the time that really solidified it, so I'll definitely get into that, but I 100% recommend giving her a read. So before I jump into See You Yesterday, I'm going to just touch on Kindred and why it's important that it's here. So Kindred is from 1979. All right, now remember this. The first black science fiction writer. 1979. So in it, it is about Dana, a black woman who finds herself repeatedly transported to the antebellum South, where she must make sure that Rufus, the plantation owner's son, survives to father Dana's ancestor. Just let that sit for a second. She has to go back and make sure that this man creates her line. Okay. Plantation owner's son. All right. I don't even know where to begin. really with this. But I want to start with, so I saw this TikTok. I can't remember where it was because I have a lot of favorites on there, about this woman who was talking about how long America has been around and explained that for over 400 years, the different varying oppressions that African Americans and Black Americans of this country have faced. So varying from the 244 plus years of slavery to the Jim Crow era to the new Jim Crow era, which is our mass incarceration, thanks to Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow and Ava DuVernay's 13th documentary. 13th is the name of it. If you want to go at it about why we're still in Jim Crow, just took on a new name. Essentially, it was the statement that white Americans have had 400 years to build their lives and establish systems in place to guarantee and secure their freedoms and privilege, while Black Americans are still fighting against those systems that have taken many forms over these 400 years to keep them from the freedoms and the ability to grow and prosper in the ways that white Americans have been able to do since the beginning, right? With this surplus of time that they had. And then we're sitting here asking, like, why aren't you better? Like, yeah. What do you mean? Make the world better for us, please. And so that's my long kind of wait around to get to the sentence of Black Americans are still suffering now. And they have been for the entire history of this country. And so when you think about time travel, it leaves them zero options for where to go if they have this option, like if they have this power. And when we were talking about it, Kat had brought up, she was like, it's rude to ask someone of color to be like, when would you go back in time? Like, what year would you go? When?
All bad. Yeah. 400 years of bad.
Yeah, like there's no good answer. And so, like, it's never safe, right? It was never a time where you could or where it would be a positive experience in any way. And when, you know, it's true because, like, in Kindred, we have a woman who's in the 20th century who is an activist. She is married to a white man, but she's, like, you know, the strong Black woman and who's proud of her heritage, and she's trying to, like, you know, change her world in her present, which was already had problems, right? But she was like, no, we're going to change it. We're going to make a difference. Yeah. And then it's sent back to when it's, like, even worse than that and having to, like, keep it that way. Like, she cannot change it. Like, she has to let this awful thing happen so that she can even exist, right? And that's, like, 1979, right? Yeah. Then we come back to now, to See You Yesterday, made in 2019, and C.J. Walker, our protagonist, can go back literally a week, and that is still traumatic and awful. Like, it's still the worst answer. Like, you can't go anywhere. Yeah. Like, so, that's, like, kind of where, like, I want to say, like, you know, there's just no option. So that brings me to See You Yesterday. This is an amazing film. Definitely one of my favorite films, and it is incredibly, terribly heartbreaking. Like, I still feel it. Like, I'm still, like, very emotional every time I think about it. And I've told people about it a million times now, and it, like, gets me every single time. But it's good because it's good for people to feel and to know that that is a reality. Yeah. And that's, like, what your choice is in the matter. You know, like, if you have the time traveling ability, you go back and you try to fix things that shouldn't have happened. Yeah. Right?
Fix the injustice that surrounds us. Yeah.
And I think it's, like, it's a glimpse into the lives of so many Americans now, and you get, like, you know, front row seats to it. The trailer and the description that we told you tells us that we have this amazing protagonist, C.J. Walker, who's named after the activist, Madam C.J. Walker. And she creates a device with her friend and fellow fucking genius, Sebastian, these teen geniuses, that allows them to time travel. And it shows that her older brother, Calvin, is shot and killed by police, which influences her decision and gives her a reason to time travel, right? So you know that before you put on the film. Like, it's in the description, and that's on purpose. And this is why this amazing thing happens in the beginning that Bristol did, and I commend him for it because it really like stuck. I was like, okay, here we are. So we have in the beginning, we have like carefree moments where they're figuring out how to time travel, and she gets it right, and they're joyous and they're being giggly kids.
Yeah.
But even before that, right? She's just being a regular kid. They go into the local bodega, and she gets into a fight with her ex-boyfriend, and who comes to save her? Her brother. And it's like, it's such a good moment too, because you're like, oh, there's big bro. Like, and you feel it. Like, even, and he's just like, what are you going to do? Like, you messing with my sister? Like, what are we going to do right now?
Yeah.
And so they have this, fun moment where it's clearly established who he is. And then they're walking and they're bickering like siblings. And then they are confronted by cops. And as a viewer who knows Calvin's fate, you are immediately like, already?
Yeah, like it's been 5 minutes.
Like,
oh my
now?
God. Yeah.
And you're afraid. You're terrified because you know what's going to happen. You know what's inevitable, right? Like, you know what the fear is. And because of that, because you know what the answer is, you are put into the shoes of all of the Black Americans who are confronted in the same scenarios, who are like, I could end up dead.
Yeah.
Right? And so he ends up not being murdered in that moment, but you definitely feel like you're afraid.
Yeah.
Because it's a possibility, right? And knowing that helps you be informed on like what that scene is and puts you right into the shoes that you need to be in for the rest of this film. So I think that like that scene was like phenomenal. It's so tense, it's uncomfortable, it goes on a little too long, and you're like holding your breath. Because you're like, is this it? Are they going to show it? Like, do we need to see that again? Like, we see it all on the news, So, just knowing that there's a possibility, right, that he can die from that, you're put in those shoes. And I think that's phenomenal. There's this line later in the film when CJ wants to go back in time, even though she's made all these mistakes and there's been all these, like, bad things that have happened, and she's in a different future where Calvin is alive. Right? But other things are wrong. I'm not going to spoil too much.
Yeah.
He finds out that he's supposed to be dead, so he's telling her, like, don't do this. Like, you can't, like, go back without a plan. Like, he's being a big brother. And she says she has to go back, and she says because he didn't deserve this. And because there's a character who's dead because of her. And Calvin responds, none of us do. And it's like, what? Like, I was like, oh my God, that's the whole, like, thing. Essentially, if we can leave you with anything for this episode, it's those words. Because I think we've all heard it a million times if you tune in anywhere, is that they don't deserve it. None of them do. And it's our reality, and it's a stupid reality. And so it makes me think of, like, it says this is 2019, right? And we're well into the hellscape that is 2020.
Yeah.
And we already had, like, a crazy news story with, I'm sure you guys have heard, Ahmaud Arbery, who was just a man who decided to go for a jog.
Yeah.
And was just, these two men just took it upon themselves for no reason to shoot this random other American. There's literally nothing. There's no cause, right? And it took the entirety of, like, America to call and tweet and protest for them to even be brought to any kind of justice, and that's just to be brought in, right? Like, we don't even know. They're probably going to get off because that's what they do, all right? I'm from Florida, so I know about stand your ground, and I know that there's no justice. And so when you think about, like, the effort that was put in just to bring these two men to justice, think about all the people who don't get that.
Yeah.
Who we're not hearing about. The millions of names that we hear about all the time, there's a million others that we don't hear.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, that's so real. So, when I first read Kindred, it was right around the time of Trayvon Martin. And like I said, I'm from Florida. And so that hit me. I was like, I'm reading this book where this woman is, like, dealing with that stuff, and she's going back in time, and then right here in my reality, this boy's just walking through a neighborhood and this guy kills him.
Yeah.
He's got Skittles in his pocket, right? And in the film, Calvin has a phone.
Yeah.
I just saw a video, or I didn't watch the video, of a guy who, from the police cam, he had a gun. He's in an open carry, no permit state. And the police officer was like, take your gun out, like, and put it away. And as he reaches for the gun, he gets shot. And his last words were, you told me to.
Yeah.
Like, that's the reality that we have. So that's where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
And, like, at that time, like, hearing about Trayvon Martin, reading this book and being inspired, like, I went with my classmates in March. Like, I was like, all right, that's it. Like, it put that fire under me, because I'm from a very small town in Florida.
Yeah.
And, like, didn't have the same, like, I don't know those things. Like, I wasn't from a city. I wasn't from the same places. And it was like the veil lifted, and I was like, of course. And,
Yeah.
like, so I took that to be like, all right, well, now that I know, there's no way that I could just pretend it's not happening or turn a blind eye. So it was like, no, I have to be active now. And that's, like, what Bristol wants to happen when you watch something like See You Yesterday, which is why it's such a great film for, like, film analysis, right?
Yeah.
Because it is, like, that's what we tell you, that film is more than
It's saying
just
something.
being entertained and having a good time, right? Like, just like all, there's so many films that we've addressed that are supposed to make you do something. They're supposed to drive you to action in some way. And so, it's like when you look at this, like, what does it mean that a Black protagonist with the amazing gift of time travel that she invented, this young girl invented,
Time travel.
cannot go back in time, not even a week,
Yeah.
because that's her reality. And that's what I want to drive home with all of this, right? Is that I want you to learn, right? And that's, like, why we have this channel. I want you to be inspired. And I want you to watch it, and I want you to, feel the pain and feel the injustice and be inspired to see that that's what the rest of the world is. And if that makes you watch Ava DuVernay's documentary, which will tear you apart, definitely broke me, or, like, read Octavia Butler or support, like, people in your community, like, do something, right? And in an interview, Stefan Bristol discussed the ending of See You Yesterday. And it's pretty open-ended. It's just CJ travels back in time, and she is just booking it. She is running at the camera, and she's just, like, motivated and just running and running and running for, like, it feels like forever, and just at you. And he said that's what she's doing. She's running at the viewer, and she's running at the viewer to ask them to do something, that they need to be the ones making the change. Like, she can go back in time and try to change it all she wants with this science fiction technology, right? But it's not gonna change anything, because that's, like, what time travel is, right? Is that you don't get to change the past.
Yeah.
And so
without, like, a big cost.
Yeah. And the fact that, like, her reality is, like, it's, like, either live in this reality where her brother is dead wrongfully, or keep going back in time, risking the lives of everyone, because that's the only answer, right? And she's running at you because we need to make a change. It's been 400 years, and we need to make a change. And so, like, that's what you need to get from this film. That's what you need to get from media. And it's like, well, why don't we run to make a future that we would want to travel to?
Yeah. Well, it's extremely real.